Stay in your lane.
Welcome to the Mind Your Own podcast with Aaron Sorensen and Sasha Durkin, where we stick to sports, except when we're not.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mind Your Own podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Sasha.
And I think you summed this up really well before we walked in here. I'm not even going to ask how you are, but what is going on?
What is going on?
What is going on? I want to just start by saying with this show that when you listen to this, I have no idea what will have happened. You won't have any idea what will have happened. The Big Ten may have voted. The Big Ten may not have voted. There may be an announcement. There may not be an announcement. I could not begin to tell you what will or will not happen.
In the next 12 hours, even.
Yeah, I mean, by the time you're listening to this, literally anything and everything and also nothing at all is possible. So I just want to preface that we're not going to, I think we're going to speak more generally where it should be relevant to you no matter when you choose to listen to this. So don't leave. If you are somebody who's listening to this days afterward, I encourage you to stick around.
I tweeted literally yesterday and just said, so to sum this all up, either all 14 teams will play, not all 14 teams will play. No teams will play. You may hear something, you may not hear something, but at least give it 3.5 seconds, hours, minutes, weeks, and or months. And then you'll know something.
Yep. There is and I have to give him credit, Derek Peterson. He is one of our staff writers for Hail Varsity. He also hosts the Varsity Club podcast, which I encourage you to also listen to. He tweeted this one clip from The Office where Dwight Schrute is talking about the timeline of something and Jim is grilling him on it. And I had used that on TikTok at the beginning of everything with COVID-19 around like how long quarantine would last. Yeah. Derek used it as an example of the Big Ten making decisions. And it was just really, really perfect. He did a fantastic job with crafting that tweet because it feels very, very much like what's happening.
I feel like we're living in that meme where everything is on fire around us and everyone's just like, this is fine.
Oh, good news. If you're a Funko Pop collector, the little like figurines, they have those available for pre-order. In December, they're actually going to turn the little This Is Fine fire dog into a Funko Pop, which
anyone would like to donate 2 of those to us here at Mind Your Own, we would gladly accept them.
If you work for Funko Pop or have an in to get one sooner than December, you can email us at mindyourownpodcast@hailvarsity.com. I'm only semi-joking. I've said this now almost every week since even prior to the existence of this podcast. I am ready to be let off of this roller coaster. I wake up every day and assume that it can't get crazier, and it does. And it's just exhausting. It is exhausting. I don't know how to report on anything to anyone because let's just take a quick recap of the last few days. We're not even going
to the beginning.
No, because at this point, if you don't know that, there's this thing called google.com.
Yes.
Give it a go. Where we're at now, actually, you can go to hailvarsity.com. Look at that.
There you go.
Don't even go to Google. Go to hailvarsity.com and just look at our coverage. But anyway, over the last few days, and speaking of which, I'm going to go to hailvarsity.com and pull up the story that sort of recaps whatever happened. So Tuesday morning, Ted Carter, University of Nebraska president Ted Carter, was at a press conference in Lincoln for the next phase of the National Strategic Research Institute. I can't say all of these words. Anyway, he was at this press conference, and prior to it, he was speaking with a man named Bob Hinson. He's the National Strategic Research, he's the director of the National Strategic Research Institute. So they were having this press conference. Prior to the beginning, they were talking at the podium. Here's the thing. Most mics are hot.
Yep.
And some people very quickly realized that the conversation the two of them were having was about Big Ten football. What Ted Carter said was, we're getting ready to announce the Huskers and Big Ten football tonight. Bob Hinson looks at him and says, oh, really? I heard that was happening. And Carter responded by saying, well, I should say Bob Hinson made a joke about, well, maybe this will get football off of your plate.
Right.
Ted Carter then responds, I don't think that
Probably
will ever
not.
happen, but this is a good move in the right direction.
Right.
So
then the internet exploded.
Yes. And there's actually a video, which I have to give him. There's a reporter for KLKN who was at this, this press conference, and he filmed Ted Carter looking at his phone after he sat down.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see the realization of,
oh no.
Oh no. So he puts his phone down because that's what you do. You just put it down and you move on.
Hope someone steals it.
So afterwards, this reporter from KLKN, he asked him about that. And there's really nothing you can say at that point if you're Ted Carter. You can't say, oh, I that shouldn't have been heard, because you're essentially admitting at that point that's true. That was true. So essentially he says it was taken out of context. The work is just going on, and he's cautiously optimistic.
Right.
Which,
how else do you handle that though? Like, I think I mean,
he had to be just absolutely mortified, to be honest with you, because there are people who think, for the record, we have said this before, not everything is a conspiracy theory. Not everything is like something to dive into. And all of these people on Twitter that are doing this, stop. Yeah. He did not realize the microphone was hot.
He knew he did this on purpose. No. This is how do you stick it to Warren. This is how you stick it to the Big Ten. I mean, give Nebraska the Big Ten title because they're the ones who single-handedly brought back football. Knock it off.
Walk me through what benefit this is for him to go and say that. Oh, who is he sticking it to? Because now, if that's the case, we already know that the Big Ten is frustrated that leaks have been coming out of these meetings. You think that they're like super jacked up about this?
Right. They're not like having a party.
No,
there are no balloons and cake.
Now, I also don't think that suddenly like Northwestern is going to vote against this just to stick it to Nebraska, which I've also seen some people say.
Really?
I don't think not everything is a conspiracy theory. Please just know that. I had tweeted, as someone who has attended Monday press conferences at Nebraska for a long time, I can offer one piece of advice. The mics are always, and I mean always, hot. Some people interpreted that tweet as me saying that he knew. No. I'm saying you just always have to know the mics are hot.
Right. And if you don't know that a mic is hot, assume that it is on.
Always assume. Because
that's like Broadcasting 101, by the way, for anyone who was wondering what the first rule is.
I mean, so the room that we're sitting in right now has, a series of microphones in it. The moment you walk in, just always assume that these microphones are on.
Yes.
Because, for the record, it has happened in the past. So there are times where you just have to be careful. One time, I started talking about something at the end of a podcast I recorded, and there wasn't anything bad. It was just about schedules and things that we were doing for Hail Varsity. And I thought, maybe I should have waited until that was cut, because I don't know. Like, nothing I said was like bad, but you know what I mean? You just does somebody really need to know our plans and schedules if that were to happen to get out to anyone? It's just, you have to be mindful that a microphone, if it's there, is probably
just
recording.
Assume that it's
just
on.
Assume. So I don't think he did that intentionally. Trust me, I have sat in so many press conferences at Nebraska, and here's some insider information for you all. If you're ever wondering where the sound comes from in those rooms, because if you tune into Huskers.com on a Monday morning and you wonder, I'm listening, I can hear all these people, this chatter when the stream is going, but it's like a blank screen. The microphones are in the ceiling. Yeah. So what is picking up is the microphones that are all around so that it can pick up when we're asking questions. Yes. That's what's happening. So if you're sitting there having a conversation about, this thing is going to happen, or this kid is going to commit, or this thing, Everyone is listening. You have this conversation. Right. I have had people message me and ask, hey, was that your voice I just heard? Yeah. And it's kind of a little creepy, so you just have to be aware.
Here's the other thing, too. Always. In a different circumstance, there have been times when, as a producer, I have forgotten to turn a microphone down. Yeah. So you can hear, conversation in between, on a commercial break. That's what happened then. Like, it's not, like we said, not everything is conspiracy theory. Stuff happens. People have conversations, not thinking about what is going on around them. You're just talking to a friend or a colleague or something, and something like this happens. Like, it's literally as simple as it is.
It does just happen. Now, the reason that this all gets more confusing, so to give you like just a little bit, and I'm not using you, Sasha, I'm using you, the listener, if you just want some additional context. So here's why Ted Carter's comments struck such a nerve outside of just in general. The Big Ten, according to multiple reports, 8 of the presidents and chancellors met Saturday. They listened to a medical presentation, felt good enough about that ultimately went to the presidents and chancellors from all 14 institutions. I shouldn't say not all presidents and chancellors. This is something that we ran into in week 1. This chancellors presidents committee group for the Big Ten is made up of some presidents, some chancellors, but at least one from every university. So all 14 institutions are represented. So they met Sunday and heard presentations on medical, scheduling, and television. They felt good about it. That was the reports. Everything sounded good. It sounded optimistic. It sounded like people felt positive about what they had heard, especially with the potential of rapid testing, which conveniently Nebraska announced that they have access to last week. So all of this, but it did not result in a vote. So since then, what has happened is everyone is waiting every single day for
something,
this vote and subsequent announcement. So that is why Ted Carter's comment struck such a nerve, because people were thinking that vote was Sunday. Then they started thinking it was Monday. Now it's Tuesday.
Because I thought, wasn't Friday there an announcement that within the next 72 hours there would be a vote of some kind? I know that over the weekend at some point, 72 hours was mentioned, and then it didn't happen immediately. And so people were like, WTF, come on, give us an answer.
I want to just kind of give my 2 cents on this. Sources in this thing have a lot of different motivating factors. It depends on who is talking to who. If you're talking to coaches and athletic directors, they may have an idea, but they likely don't have a huge clear-cut idea of what's happening because they are not the individuals that are voting. You would hope that they're having conversations as a university, as a group, so that everyone is on the same page. As we've found that is not the case. So I can't say that if you're talking to, and I'm just using Nebraska as an example. Please do not go and say that like I'm saying this is what happened. I'm using Nebraska as an example. But if you go and ask Bill Moose, what have you been hearing? And Bill Moose says, I've been hearing some optimism. What I would assume from that conversation is that he has had good reports from Ronnie Green. That's it. He is not actively in the decision-making room, so his information is secondhand. Scott Frost, his information is secondhand. So it's not saying that their information is wrong. It's just that they're not a part of the like initial conversation.
They're not physically in the room.
I was about to do the Hamilton thing. It's just going to become a trend every single week in the room where it happens. And so if you're somebody who listens to this every week, which you should, you're now just going to like get so tired of me saying this that you'll finally listen to Hamilton.
Get out your Hamilton bingo card. For Mind Your Own Podcast and mark it up.
I will say on my way to record this podcast, I was talking with Brandon Vogel, our managing editor for Hail Varsity, and he said diametrically opposed. And that's a lyric in Hamilton. And I was like, I have to stop you right there, and like completely derail the conversation. So my apologies to everyone when I do that to you.
And we're back.
It's just the sources thing is, people think that this is political, and to a degree it is. But I want to be clear about what I mean with that. I'm not talking it's political in the sense of like Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. It's political in the sense that you have 14 institutions who all have things that are motivating them. Things that matter more or less to everyone. And that is political in the sense of what that word means. It's not about elections.
It's about one side with their information and their motivating factors and the things that they want to accomplish versus 13 other institutions that have their own individual motivating factors instead of circumstances, et cetera.
Now and I'm just totally projecting here, but like one university could hypothetically be saying right now, we'll vote for this, sure, but if we're going to have rapid testing for football, we would like to have rapid testing for all of our students on campus.
Right.
That would be in a political motivation.
Right.
And what that means is not political in the sense of like a candidate versus a candidate.
Right.
It's political in the sense that this matters to us, but it might not matter to you. And so now we are coming to a head over if this can be done.
Right.
Everyone has things that motivate them. So it's just something that you have to be aware of, that everyone is looking out for themselves. And to a degree, we're kind of seeing source wars.
Right.
Where sources are going. And I understand the frustration, because there are people who are like, well, why are you allowing sources to be anonymous and to say what they want to without going on the record, without telling people who they are? Why is the media allowing people to essentially like run them from here to there to here to there? And I actually do agree with some of that.
And muddling up what the clear picture is.
Yes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as reporters, our job is to report the information that we are told. Now, I do want to just like give this one piece of context because it's important to me. I've seen some people, I think, have some misunderstanding of what anonymous sources are. And it's okay. If you did not take Journalism 101, and this is not me saying that like condescendingly. I'm just saying if you are not somebody who actively pursued journalism, you're not going to know this. Right. And I get that. Anonymous sources are not anonymous to the person that is reporting it. That person knows the source. They're giving them they're allowed to be anonymous in that sense because it allows that person to speak more candidly. It allows them to speak more openly and honestly without the fear of what may happen
to them. Yeah. Repercussion.
Right. So like take Watergate. Watergate was essentially blown open because of anonymous sources. Right. And people speaking off the record or speaking on background. So here's your like little journalism thing. If something is off the record, it means it cannot be reported. Right. If it's on background, it can be reported, but the person who told you has to remain nameless. Anonymous. You cannot share anyone's information that would point you to who it was. Right. If it's on the record, it's on the record. That person put their name, they don't care. Right. In some cases, like you'll get an anonymous tip. And that is not something that you report. At least I would. Like, I don't know any good journalist that would go report an anonymous tip without going and corroborating that information. Right. And typically when you do have an anonymous source that comes to you, if somebody came to me, and this is how it's worked everywhere I've worked, if somebody came to me and said, I have a story for you, but I don't want to go on the record. You can go report it, but I'm not okay with you sharing my information. Who I am. I have to go get somebody else that will corroborate that story. Right. I have to have another person, at least another person. Right. Sometimes at least like two more people, like 2 to 3 sources when it's off the record is ideal. If you can get multiple people who tell you, yes, this happened, this is what has happened, and their stories are not conflicting, then you're good. Right.
Because then you're not just like running willy-nilly with anything that everyone comes at you with, like right. That would be.
It would be unethical.
Yes.
And if somebody is doing that, I guess I don't know. I can't tell you for sure what any other reporter is or is not doing. I would hope that they're following journalistic ethics, the kind of the code of ethics, whatever those actually are. Mm-hmm. But I will be honest, there are people who are not doing that. And that has to be massively frustrating to a reader or to somebody consuming this. And that is why I've always said, check multiple sources. Right. If one person is reporting something but no one else is, look into that. There's a reason that's happening.
And that's not just with this. This is with anything.
Is any story.
Like if you see something and you're like, well, I don't know about that, do some homework. I always call it doing your homework. Like if it doesn't seem right to you and you're not seeing it anywhere else, look it up. Yep. Do a little bit of research for yourself, for your own self-preservation.
Right. Because the thing is like in a world of like, I will be honest, I get really overly sensitive to this. So to everyone listening, I'm just telling you, it doesn't like hurt my feelings, but I definitely give you a little bit of a side eye when you do it. I don't like when people go, I don't like the media, because I am the media. So I feel like when I see like friends and family making comments about how terrible the media is, and I'm like, excuse me, what about me? They're like, well, you don't count. I'm like, well, but now I'm even more offended.
Right.
Yes, there are always going to be, just like in any job, people who are not good at it, people who make mistakes, people who mess up, people who don't do things right, people who do things whatever. Right. Don't hold the entire like we have to be able to like see things like for what they are. So if something seems bizarre, out of place, fishy, whatever word that you might use when you see it, just look it up.
Right. Chances are, if there's some, like, if this is like an actual breaking news story, multiple outlets are going to have the same or similar information.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where I get it. It's hard. And especially, I will be honest, as a member of the media, this has been just so draining. Trying to figure out like what the heck is going on.
Parsing through what's real, what actually the hell is happening.
Yes. Yeah. My brain just feels like it's going to explode at all times, to the point where I have taken moments where I just shut things off and I go do something, and I almost feel guilty about it, because I'm like, what if something's happening right now? Because that's what it has felt like. I do not feel like I have had a break in weeks. So I've said this now to multiple people. I really don't even care what the Big Ten decides to do. Make a decision.
Just make one.
Say something.
Who cares?
Cancel.
I know a lot of people care.
Cancel football forever for all. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Do not at me right now on Twitter. But just make some decision. Say something.
Yes,
because
I do have a question about that. About that decision.
Sports forever?
No, because that's not realistic. I do have a question, because I was thinking about this earlier when this whole whatever the hell is happening right now like exploded. Do they have to, as a conference, have a unified front on that? Like, is it all of them play or none of them play? Is it okay if some of them play and some of them don't? Because I feel like my first gut reaction was, if they allow some teams to play and allow some teams to choose not to, I feel like that just further muddles up and just adds like another onion layer to this already piece of crap thing that's happened. I shouldn't say piece of crap, but like this whole entire situation that's played out for over a month now.
Well, I think it's fair. I think calling the Big Ten situation a piece of crap is probably being kind to the situation. So what's interesting about that is that's honestly, and this is again me just projecting. I don't have the like insider info on this. No one I think really does. But it feels to me that there's a reason that there's a hang up.
Yeah.
There's something that is preventing everyone from like hopping on board and going, yeehaw, we're in. And I don't know if that's the date, because for the record, the date thing has been just so funny to me, because it started as October 3rd and then it became October 10th. And now it's around October 17th. And I saw for the first time somebody offer up October 24th. And it's just, you're kicking the can at that point. Stop throwing arbitrary dates around.
Right.
Now,
Halloween.
Yes. I mean, we have heard that October 17th appears to be the date, and there's a reason for it, because the Big Ten, if they can start around the 17th, like I'm going to say around there, you could have realistically 8 weeks of play that allow you then to have a Big Ten championship and then be potentially eligible for the college football playoffs if you are named Ohio State.
Right.
So I get the timeline. I get why. I get it. But the thing there's something that's holding this up. So even though everyone is saying like, oh, everyone felt optimistic and felt great about our meetings over the weekend, something is stopping them, because if they felt that great, they would have voted.
Yeah, there would be a decision made, period.
Even if on Sunday they said, this is amazing, loving everything, we'd like to go back to campus and have a quick couple of conversations with some people that we need to talk to, but like, let's circle back tomorrow.
Right.
It doesn't feel like that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
Especially because you now have all of these different people chiming in. So the chancellor for the University of Wisconsin, Rebecca Blank, she came out earlier this week in a teleconference with reporters, essentially clearing up the rumor that some schools could move forward and some may opt out.
Right.
Now, we've heard everything from the Michigan schools to Maryland and Rutgers to Northwestern to Minnesota may opt out. I've heard upwards of half the conference, which then brings an entirely new set of questions of like, what do you do if 7 teams opt out? So she comes out and says, basically, if there is a vote, and she is a member of the council that votes, to be clear, that they would all, as a conference, move forward together. And her exact words were, this isn't going to be a school-by-school thing. So that put to rest the idea that some may or may not opt out. I need to know how Rutgers gets there.
Yeah.
Because if you're somebody who's like, this is all politics, the one school that people have been hanging on in the last week is Rutgers. Because Rutgers, was it their president? Chancellor? Somebody?
Yeah, somebody.
Basically came out and made a comment about, it was the president, Rutgers president. Rutgers president Jonathan Holloway, thank you. He pushed back on the fact that President Trump got involved in any way with the Big Ten.
Right.
He called it cheap politics.
Yeah.
So whether or not you are on the same page, you believe the same thing as Rutgers president, because he said it, now everyone's like, this is political with it.
Right.
So my bigger thing is how do you get Rutgers from that
to agreeing to play? Yeah.
How do you get there? Because that is a big old canyon that you're trying to like bridge there. Like that is not even like a small little creek that you're like, okay, we're a little bit off in here. Like this is like
pretty far off.
What you're on, one's in California, one's in New York, and like you're trying to bridge that.
Yeah.
This is a significant difference of beliefs here.
Right.
So
well, and the other thing too,
you're like literally listening to me, my brain break.
The other like layer to this beautiful Shrek onion that we have blooming here is the fact that
sorry, you made me think of a blooming onion and I'm hungry. If anyone like hears like a rumbling in the background, it is my stomach. Okay,
sorry,
continue.
It's not a lawnmower. It's Aaron's stomach.
Yes, I'm back.
Is the fact that they said they wouldn't revisit it, like at all.
Yeah, they
and I wonder like how much of like I wonder if this council and the people that were voting for this like are just like. Social media pressure to then revisit it. It's not even just social media. It's the schools. It's the teams. It's, a lot of other people are involved. There's a lot of moving parts. Mm-hmm. But that was again brought up the other day, like 2 days ago. Speaking
of Wisconsin Chancellor Rebecca Blank, so we don't even have the time to get into this, but at some point we will. The whole name, image, likeness thing and that whole thing that's happening right now. Yeah. And there's a U.S. Senate committee hearing that's been happening, and the quotes that have been coming out of it make me just want to like break into that room and be like, hold up, well, actually. Like, I would really like to actually that room. Right. But anyway, the important part is Rebecca Blank, Wisconsin Chancellor, she made a comment in that meeting that the Big Ten, she said, her exact words were, once we have answers to those issues, we will try to plan a delayed season. The issue she was talking about is the availability of testing and contact tracing and the need to learn more about that myocarditis. Yeah. Ooh, if I just said that right for the first time ever. Ooh. It's the heart condition that people are unfamiliar with that we have seen so many conflicting reports on. Mm-hmm. So she said, essentially, we need more information on that. We need availability of testing and the contract tracing. And once we have that, we can move forward. Right. Okay. That's a lot to happen. What is it? September. Today is we're in the middle of September. Well, I mean, it kind of, to me, for a bunch of people, based on what Ted Carter is saying, that like tonight we're going to get some kind of announcement that like Big Ten play is happening. Right. Wisconsin's not sounding too confident here. And Wisconsin was one of the votes that I think that everyone thought was flipped. Right. So to be clear, if you're somebody like, what's it going to take? Two things here. First and foremost, it's 9 votes. You need 9 votes. The last vote was 3 in favor of playing the season, and that was Ohio State, Iowa, and Nebraska. So that means you need to flip 6 votes. Yep. Wisconsin was one of those that people were pretty confident in. Mm-hmm. Her statement today doesn't sound overly confident. That worries me to a degree of like, well, what does that mean? What happens then? So I know this is probably, I'm just like almost a rhetorical question here, but like,
what happens if they don't have, if they do get majority? Do they force the other schools that didn't want to play?
Well, so that's what I was going to say. So a bunch of people have come forward and said, if this happens, you have to come forward and say it's a unanimous vote.
I think, period.
But here's the problem that I run into with this. The last time they said that, we all needed to know what the vote was.
What the vote was, yep.
So I
hate this.
Yep. So first and foremost, you cannot say it was a unanimous vote if they vote to delay.
Right.
If they say, nope, we're staying postponed, we're not doing anything, you cannot call that a unanimous vote because people will literally burn the Big Ten to the ground. But if they vote to play, I feel like to technically be fair, you have to report that vote count because let's say it is 9 to 5.
Right.
Who are the 5 that are saying that they're not in? Not because we need to go like shame them because
we don't need to know who, but I feel like if you already, like you ended up releasing the vote anyway because there was pressure to do so, I think that right out of the gate, you just need to say this was what the vote was. Just to even stop a landslide of more crap flowing down the mountain.
I think if we've learned nothing else in this whole thing, just communication is just like so fundamental here. And something I did not say in our first episode, which if this is the first one that you're hopping in on, welcome. So happy that you're here. The first one is still very entertaining, if not slightly outdated, but I recommend you listen to it. The one thing that I wish I would have said in that podcast was I made some comments about how Jim Delaney was the like iron fist. He was he ruled with the iron fist. And I had also said something along the lines of how I don't like to make comparisons between Jim Delaney and Kevin Warren.
Right.
I don't think that they're fair for 2 reasons. And I want to give a shout out to Brandon Vogel for reminding me this. First and foremost, they're just 2 different leaders. Yeah. They just are 2 different people.
They have 2 different styles of leading.
Yeah, that's okay. Like we all have things that make us the type of worker, the type of leader, the type of friend, family member, whatever. The things that make us go, like us tick, are what make us good at this or not good at this, whatever. The second point, though, with this is he has a very different level of experience than Jim Delaney would have had going into this. Kevin Warren is not only still probably figuring out everything he needs to know about his conference and the people that make it work as he is through a pandemic. Like there's so many things that like we're watching someone learn as they go. Right. Now that does not exonerate him from criticism. Right. I just hope that this is
Come from a different level of understanding though when thinking about what you just said. I think is all we're asking here.
Yeah, just if you're angry with him, maybe take a step back and say my anger is justified. I have every right to feel upset that this thing is happening and I feel he could be doing better, but my point would just be take a step back and say could this hopefully lead to it being better in the future? Like that's my hope. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the communication get like for me, the one thing he could do right now, and I can't even take credit for this. Brandon Vogel said this, but I agree with it, and I have to say it here. If he just told people to cut the crap out, stop. Like if you're Rebecca Blank or you're Ted Carter or you're anyone who has anything to do with stop talking to people. Right. Just go into the situation and say like, I need you can't do this anymore. You have to be quiet because we have to get this done. And the more you go and talk to your sources and tell all this stuff and do this and
I
this
feel
and
like
this.
it's almost like making it a longer wait.
Yes.
A longer decision-making process. Yeah. Like just shut it.
I understand allowing...
go into the room and listen to the stuff and do what you're supposed to do and just don't talk anymore. I understand
trusting them and trusting your member institutions to like know what's best and to share what they feel is important. I get that. But in this case, you're doing nothing but just creating so much noise. Yeah.
You're creating chaos that's unnecessary.
I'm not saying Kevin Warren needs to be the iron fist, but in this case, you need to get control of this because if there isn't some kind of announcement soon, or if there is and it's not what people want, or if it is what people want, but there's still some like lack of clarity around it, you got to get people to stop talking. Yep. And I'm all for like access to information. That's not what I'm saying here. Yeah. We're just not getting anywhere with the way it's functioning right now. Right. And I think a big part of it is because these meetings are ending and people are running off and telling other people what's happening in them. And now it's becoming this, lack of a better word, shitstorm.
Yeah. It's just, it really is like we're on the top of shit mountain and it's like just crumbling slowly but surely right beneath, you know? I think that people, once there is some kind of a decision hopefully made soon, then you go talk. But while all this other stuff is happening and you're still trying to come to a conclusion, why would that be the first thing that you're going to do? Shouldn't it be thinking and figuring out and finding out how you make this happen or why it won't work?
Also, why are there so many committees? The Big Ten has like 42 committees. And here's the funny thing is like, I've had people who've asked me about these committees. I've had people who are like, oh, well, what's this? And I'm like, well, see, Bill Moose is on this committee, but then there's also the medical committee. And also like, so Bill Moose is on the scheduling committee, but apparently there's also a TV committee. And that's, like I said, on top of medical. And then you have the like 8 chancellors and presidents who were a part of the group that met Saturday, but then you have the one of all 14 that met Sunday. I've just named 5 separate committees.
Right.
And then there's apparently another committee that includes some coaches in it for when the return to play actually is like in place and like how you make it happen. Do you need this many people involved?
Right. Are you wondering why we are where we're at right now?
Maybe
it's because there's 700 committees.
What? Like, I mean,
made
I
up
get
of
it. Like,
all different people.
Are we just trying to make people feel like, okay, you're getting an important job too. Don't worry about it. Like your input is very much appreciated. So like we're putting you on the TV committee.
Right.
Like,
so if you've learned nothing else about this podcast, it's that no one knows anything.
No. And I feel like, you know, I will say as a journalist myself, it's very overwhelming to feel like I'm not able to provide more because journalism really, you know, we should be the flashlight. We should be the thing that is shining the light on these things and showing you what's happening. And I see so many people trying and I see so many people who are just trying to get pieces of information, but it's just it's such a shit show. And it's funny because as I was watching football over the weekend, and that is a whole separate thing as far as like what my feelings were as I was actually watching football. But I kept thinking as they were talking about the Big Ten, why is no one talking about the Pac-12?
Right.
And I'm not saying the Pac-12 is perfect here. I think part of it is just the Big Ten. Big Ten football is just a little bit of a different experience than Pac-12 football. But that's also like would be unfair of me to say that Pac-12 fans don't care about sports.
Right.
So I'm not going to sit here and say that like people just don't care about what they're doing, but like there's a very fundamentally different like.
Yeah, I think the whole entire approach was different. It seems like that's what it seems like at this point. Like,
and they seem pretty confident in what they're saying. So the Big Ten is having all of this hot mess city, and they're like, well, we don't see ourselves playing until November at the earliest. Like they came out, I think, a few days ago and made a comment of like, okay, if the Big Ten's doing that, we still don't know if we can play until November or so. Yeah. That was like it. Yeah. There was no like further like, well, tell us why. It was just like, okay, you told us what that you're doing this. I think they have just been more concise. Yeah. And there's less chatter. Yep. You're not hearing athletic directors and presidents and coaches coming out and being like, well, I heard this. It's when we get an update from the Pac-12, it's typically coming from the Pac-12. Yeah. And now this is a conference that people are like all over them about how much they're paying for their location in San Francisco. I mean, they're not perfect by any means. And yet we're all just kind of like, whatever. Yeah. Okay. You guys do you. I wonder what that's like. It sounds much more peaceful, although we'll ever know. Probably not, because they are also facing horrific wildfires in their areas. Yeah. So I also thought about that. Even if they could return to play, it's probably not possible for them right now on a number of reasons. I feel bad. I feel bad for anyone who just wants answers, because we were talking about this a little bit before. This is so heavy. This is so much for mental health to spend this much time online trying to make sense of everything. And in general. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are all at home more. We're spending more time on our phones. I think the misinformation is heavier and more prominent than ever. And it's not just specific to this. I'm talking across the board. It's just the amount of fake news and anger and yelling and hatefulness and just like, it's just vile. I just don't know how anyone can spend significant amount of time on social media right now, unless it's TikTok, because that's a different place.
That's like funny, you know. Like, it just blows my mind how I've always felt like Twitter is like really fast about like spreading good information, bad information in general. So the second anything happens with Nebraska, like the first place you want to go or don't want to go is Twitter, because all that information,
people screenshot tweets and then go share it on Facebook.
It just, I think that we all need to take a second to recognize maybe when those feelings of just like absolute anger come forward, like what's really going on with us personally. Right. This has been a really, really, really long year of uncertainty and experiencing things that a lot of us have never experienced before. Having to be home all the time, working from home, not being able to go anywhere.
Canceling big events,
there's
postponing
no concerts.
Events, the things that you look forward to. Just things that like are good for your mental health, that get you away from a lot of this.
All your escapes have been taken away.
Yes.
So like, I get why you're pissed. I totally get it. I think we all, to a certain extent, at some point, either during our day, during our week, whatever, experience that point where we're just like, I get it, man. But I don't think that then spending more time on the internet, seeking out things to maybe, I don't know, sometimes it seems like people are just like sitting, waiting to pounce on somebody else for something or other. Yeah. It doesn't have to be football. It doesn't have to be anything in particular. Just like waiting to like take your pent up rage out on other people. It sometimes seems like.
Yeah. I mean, I've just noticed more and more lately that people that I have really enjoyed on Twitter, I actually saw somebody that I follow the other day say she feels like her time on Twitter is coming to an end because she's just not. There's things she enjoys about it, but it's starting to become too much. And I felt that. But for me, I still really appreciate what Twitter can be and what social media can be. I think it's really important for all of us. And the thing is like, first and foremost, to those of you who have been listening to this podcast and who have joined us, so many of you have left really nice comments. You've tweeted at us. We've gotten, an amazing email from a listener who had his daughter who was listening with him. We have received ratings that are so kind, and so like thank you so much. Like I'm not in any way assuming that like every single one of you is going to love us, and I don't expect you to. But the thing I realize is we do often attract what we put out, and so I hope that we are bringing people here who feel good when they're done listening to this podcast. I hope that you at least, even if like we don't agree on everything, you at least walk away feeling a sense of like not rage, but more just like, okay, I'm not alone in all of this. Yeah. My confusion over the Big Ten is the same as their confusion.
We're all sitting in the same flaming dumpster.
Yeah. And, and I think when I say to whomever is listening to this, just be kind to yourself, but be kind to others. Remember the people behind every account that you interact with, whether it's a brand or a personal account, that's a real person there. Yeah. I'm not really all that worried about any of you. I assume if you're here, you're probably a pretty good person because like I said, I hope that we put some good vibes out into the universe and that has attracted you here. Yeah. But if not, if you're somebody who has found yourself yelling on the internet, maybe just like reflect on it for half a second, because that's not good for you. It's not good for others. Yeah. That's not to say don't use social media when it needs. I actually was really proud. I saw a friend of mine, she had a really poor experience with something and they weren't responding as far as customer service was concerned. And she used Twitter, which I'm always super hesitant to use Twitter in that way, but she used it in such a great way. She was like, hey, really respect the person behind this. Know that it's not your decision, but here's my issue and I can't get anyone's help. Can you guys help me here? was like, hey, that was a really great way of like saying you messed up, but I need some help here. And I'm not also going to yell at you in the process.
I think that the one thing I do always want to tell people is like, if you can't find yourself being able to practice patience and kindness with other people, at least practice patience and kindness with yourself, especially right now. Do. Like, we're all going through it, man. Like, we are all going through it. But if you practice some patience and kindness with yourself, you might see your attitude change on other things.
Now, I will say, if you're somebody who is like, that's great, Sasha and Aaron, I really appreciate that. I just want to know what the Big Ten is doing. Well, apparently, again, saying this, that by the time you listen to this, literally anything is possible. Apparently, from the Wisconsin side of things, which this is just amazingly ironic considering what I have told you throughout this podcast. But apparently, the news that Nebraska President Ted Carter leaked earlier was true. The Big Ten is, the votes are in. It's done. They will announce as a conference their plan for 2020 football at some point, apparently by the end of Tuesday. So by the time you are listening to this, you may know, I'm going to go out on a limb and still say it's probably going to be confusing.
Right.
Like, you might be listening to this being like, no, but seriously, still, what is going on?
Title this podcast, You Might Know Something.
You might know something, or what is going on? Because the answer is...
what the hell is happening?
And funny enough is Ohio State has now tweeted a video of their football players putting on pads and all this stuff.
Oh, boy. Well, here we go. We might know something, and maybe we won't.
Here's the thing. When you listen to this, I'm going to be really excited alongside you just for whatever it means.
Yeah.
Because honestly, like I told you, I don't care anymore. No, I do. I do care. I just want to know, where do I need to be? When do I need to show up? And preferably, I would like the Big Ten to tell me what's happening, because this is a very like personal reason. But sideline fashion means a great deal to me. If I'm going to be at Memorial Stadium at any point this fall, I would like to know, and I have to tell you why. I have some Old Navy super cash I need to spend. Should I be spending that on more joggers and things that I wear at home? Or should I be investing in, real pants? So if the Big Ten could just give me a heads up on how to move forward with my fall fashion, I would appreciate that.
Yes.
I would appreciate it.
Maybe you'll know.
Who knows? Now,
today,
the one thing we did say every week, we're going to give something to challenge. This week is not as well. It could be. I don't know. Yeah. I'm going to do this. I have Netflix. So I'm going to watch this because you haven't. And
my husband plays hockey at night, so I have time to watch this before next week.
So kind of going alongside everything that we've talked about in this podcast, like sincerely.
Yes.
There is a new documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. I watched the preview for it. It's essentially, they found previous executives for all of your major social networks, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, which some of these are the same, like Instagram is owned by Facebook, whatever. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the whole point of the documentary is to sort of shine a light on what social media is doing to us. What it has created and what the people behind it feel like we're up against. Yeah. And here's just a piece of a review from a tweet that was sent to me. This individual watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, and said the most chilling moment was this. The question was asked, what worries you the most? And an ex-Facebook executive said, in the shortest time horizon, civil war. So let's all go watch this. And I have had somebody else who watched it and said it's heavy, but it's still really good. Yeah. But I hope if we can all watch this, it gives us some perspective, even as somebody who's a huge advocate for social media. Yeah. I think we all really need to have a moment of reflection of what this beast that we have created can do for us and to us. Yes. And what it is doing for us and to us.
And then after you watch it with us we give you 7 days from the second that this podcast drops to watch it, and then email us at mindyourownpodcast@hailvarsity.com and tell us what you thought of it, and we'll maybe we'll read some of those emails next week and we'll share our thoughts on what we watched.
Yeah. And also, like, if you use that email, let us know what you are feeling around everything with Big Ten football. I'd love to hear some thoughts.
How's your shit mountain going?
Yeah. How have you felt? Like, by the time you're listening to this, I assume there's an answer. I don't know. And honestly, if there is an answer, I don't know if that's going to stick. Like, we don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I feel as confident that any decision will actually happen. I'm literally, I will believe it when I see people on a football field.
Agreed.
So just tell me how you're feeling. I'm curious.
We'd love to hear from you.
I would. I just would love to, like, get some feedback to see if, like, we can't be the only ones who feel this way. Well, no, I know we're not, because I see you all yelling on Twitter. Just come commiserate with us.
Yes.
But I will say, 3 weeks into the show, we really, really appreciate you joining us.
Yes.
I've had so much fun. I've really enjoyed hearing from you, and please keep that up.
Yeah.
You can tweet at me at Erin Sorensen on Twitter, at Sasha72. I'm not giving out your Instagram handle just yet.
Yeah, don't do that.
But you can also tweet at Hail Varsity if you'd rather tweet there. It doesn't matter. Somebody will respond to you.
Yep.
But thank you so much for joining us so far.
Yes.
Hopefully,
yes,
for everyone's sake, we have some answers.
I really hope so. Maybe, like, then it won't be so heavy and we won't have to feel so helpless next week.
This is so funny as we end this podcast, and I'm just watching Twitter just go crazy with all of the new news of apparently it's a done deal.
Maybe we'll know.
Well, I guess play ball?
Yeah.
Question mark?
See you next week.
See you next Wednesday.